Welcome to the Vaycay podcast. I'm Ryan Alford, your co-host with Chris Hansen, my co-host, and we're excited today to have a special guest. We're going to talk longevity, living as long as you can. Talking DNA. We're talking to CEO and founder of the DNA company, Kashif Khan, biohacker, celebrity longevity coach, and author of The DNA Way, Unlocking the Secrets of Your Genes and Reverse Disease, Slow Aging, and Achieve Optimal Health. I can't think of any more acronyms. What's up, brother? Welcome to the show.
Good, man. It's good to be here.
Hey, excited to have you. Chris and I like talking wellness. We like talking DNA, and we both, want to live as long as possible. Who doesn't?
Yeah, for sure.
I know. We appreciate you coming on, Kashif. DNA is an interesting topic, and I want to get down to it. As long as it's not used against me in a case in the future. I watch too much Dateline. It's okay, we've got his DNA. Yeah. So, guys, give a little background on, and let's tee it up with some of your background and what got you here today.
Yeah. Well, first of all, there is a lot of that going on. It goes way past Dateline. Your data is being sold, rest assured, somewhere. Right?
Yes.
You got to protect it.
I know.
So, yeah, what we learned, so I don't come from the industry. I came into it being sick. I had multiple chronic conditions and couldn't really get an answer as to why. And that question was the big deal for me. Okay, I know what you're telling me all these things are, what pills to take, but why did it happen? What did I eat wrong? What did I expose myself to? And that was my first go about being in the medical system and learning that you actually can't get an answer to that question, which seems so simple and straightforward. It's really, here's what you have, here's the pill you got to take, and we're going to manage this condition. So I had to do what most people that actually find health do, is take charge of it myself. And fast forward, after a lot of work and research and trial and error, I learned that my genetic code was broken in a few areas. So picture, here's your 50 trillion cells that make up your body. Each one has a little instruction manual in it. And based on the cell, a heart cell, a liver cell, a brain cell, it knows what pages to read so it can do its job. So if the instructions are broken, the jobs aren't happening properly. And if the jobs aren't happening properly, the same exposure that for someone has no negative outcome, for you can cause eczema, migraines, depression, or as bad as cancer, cardiovascular disease, etc. That's what was happening to me. I was in a building in downtown Toronto where I live, in my office. There was a manufacturing company downstairs that was putting toxic pollutants into the airways. And I had all these inflammatory and autoimmune responses that were just getting worse and worse and worse. My business partner had no problem. So I believed the story that you have these things, right? I would never think that it's your environment until I figured out and learned how the body works and certain genes that I was entirely missing that didn't support my detox pathways. And so that toxic environment just meant a lot more for me. I'm now healthy. I have no chronic conditions. It's been that way for years. I'm in the best shape and sort of energy and sleep and all of what you want to talk about in my life because I've learned how my genetic code works, and I've kind of hacked away at every system of my body.
I love that. Awesome. Chris, and I'm sitting here going, I know my genetic code's busted. All right. So we'll get to that personally, but how do you go about that? Without we want to keep it high level here. We don't want to put anybody we'll go over my head or anyone else's, but how does one even start that process?
So even that part was broken. And this is why I built this sort of, call it, new pool of science, a new way to think about what your genes can actually tell you. I now speak regularly at medical conference with zero medical background or science background because the doctors have no clue that what we do is even possible. Right? And what do we speak about? That genetics isn't, you have a gene, which means you have an 80% chance of Alzheimer's, good luck.
Right.
That's literally what it was up until now.
Yeah.
The starting point, okay, here's a priority. There's something going on that points to this propensity of a potential problem down the road. Why? Why is it going to happen? Because I don't have it now. Why then? Right? There's no switch that just turns on that equals Alzheimer's. Mm-hmm. Is it my gut? Is it my insulin response? Is it my inability to move cholesterol around my body in plaque forms? Is it the actual hardware of the brain? So you can then start to get really personalized into the why. And if you know that, you can entirely prevent it. And we know this is true because we reversed these conditions in people. We've taken people off cholesterol pills. We've taken people off of chemotherapy, even people that were ongoing chronic cancer patients. We figured out why. So all in all, it's as simple as spitting in a tube, having that sequenced, and the key part of this is interpretation. What does it all mean? It's not you got a risk of breast cancer or you have this in my family, or no, it's you have a job that your body is supposed to do. Your body doesn't do that job well, or maybe it does it a little too well, and either one of those can cause a problem. And here's the habits that if you were to have equal these problems, and here's the habits if you were to have equal not having any of those problems. And it sounds overly simplified, but that's literally how easy it is. If I know that my car has a flat tire and I fix that tire, I'll go down the road. If I don't, I'm going to have trouble, right? If I drive a Ferrari off-road, it's not going to work the way it does on a track. If I take my SUV off the road, no problem, but it can't beat the Ferrari on the track. We're all wired differently for different jobs. And if we do them well, we should thrive.
I love it.
Man, so spit to get fit. Damn. Yeah. Who knew?
There you go, man. This is why you have a fucking podcast.
I know. Where did that come from? That's great. The one thing that you said that really jumped out at me was the why. Like, why did this happen when you first told your story? I think in modern medicine, they're so focused on not the why, but just putting the Band-Aid on the current issue and not looking deeper. I think that's a huge thing. And I've learned recently that your DNA can actually change throughout your life, or putting stressors on your body and stuff like that. Is there anything you can speak on that? Like, because you obviously mentioned environment affected, which I think that's becoming a very big conversation right now with 5G and our water and our food supply and stuff like that. If you could just elaborate on, your knowledge on how your DNA can change, or what you guys are doing. Is it daily habits that is changing your DNA, or is your DNA staying the same and you're just doing things to counter that deficiency?
So that's exactly what we needed to unpack and make easy to understand in order to take this crazy science of genetics and make it usable, which is there's this camp of academia saying this is your DNA and this gene means this and this gene means that. Prescription, right? Then there's a camp of functional medicine and wellness saying that your DNA doesn't matter because based on your habits, you're sick or you're not sick, right? So really, it's a combination of the two. If you understand, here's my innate genetic code, which doesn't change, by the way, that's permanent. You're born with it. Those are the cards you've been dealt, and you have to now make your decision based on that. And if I give you an example, for example, the GST-M1 gene, I don't have it, completely missing from my code. It's a primary detoxifier of the gut. So when I go out to a restaurant with my friends, I had to be super careful about what I'm eating, not just the chemicals, but what packaging was it in? Did they use chemicals to dry the chickpeas to make hummus, which hummus sounds like a health food, but sometimes it isn't. And other people won't have a problem because they have a good version of that gene. I don't even have the gene, right? So now genetics cannot change the fact that I am missing this gene. So I have no first line of defense in the gut. Now the epigenetics, the lifestyle, environment, nutrition, are the choices I have to constantly make to actually walk towards good health or walk away from it. Right? I now truly have a choice, but I didn't know what to prioritize and what to focus on until I understood my DNA. This for me is a big red flag. Gut health and what I'm consuming is my choice between disease or not disease. Why? Because if the gut's dysbiotic, it leads to leaky gut. It leads to toxins entering directly into your bloodstream, crossing the blood-brain barrier, causing cognitive decline, inflammation, migraines, eczema, autoimmunity, all of the things that I had, right? Wow. So that's really how you have to look at it. And the challenge is these two camps don't talk. So me being an outsider saying this is the exact problem I need to fix. It's so obvious. As a layman saying I wish this tool worked for me. So I spent 3 years with 7,000 patients, one by one, interviewing them with our clinical team to say, what are your habits? What do you eat? What medication are you on? How do you feel when it's sunny outside versus nighttime? Like all of these unique things that you wouldn't think of, to now be able to feed back to somebody that has their test data. Here's exactly the habits you should have. Here's exactly the habits you shouldn't have. And by the way, if you do focus on the bad ones, here's all the problems you can expect.
Man, why is there such a disconnect between stuff like this? I mean, is it kind of like my wife's in the education system, and it's like we do it the same way because we've always done it the same way? And is it the same thing in the medical world? Is it really that simple?
Well, in the medical world, so there's two challenges. One is when we move towards, so modern medicine isn't mainstream medicine. We have been a natural health system for as many centuries as you can go back until recently. Chemical and pharma medicine is the new stuff, not natural health, right? We think that because the last couple of generations, that's all we've seen. And so our perspective, right? So, and if you think of the body as chemistry, then you're going to treat the chemistry, which is pharmaceuticals. And treating chemistry means measuring what's happening today. A cholesterol number is high, a hormone level is off, and you're just trying to change that without ever asking, why did it become high?
Right.
And let me give you an example there. So when this is the number one prescribed medication, Lipitor, to suppress high cholesterol to prevent quote unquote heart disease. Right? And that's a word. So this is the easiest thing to deal with if you actually know what's going on. So here's your blood vessel. It's a tube, right? Most heart disease, by the way, doesn't happen in the heart. It usually happens in the arteries around the heart. They get calcified, blocked up. The elasticity goes away over time and they age. So what's actually going on is the inner lining of this tube, it's called the endothelium. It's where the blood actually touches and makes contact. We can genetically determine what quality you have. Is it stainless steel, highly prone to like resilience, or is it more paper thin and more prone to inflammation? So maybe you have the bad hardware. Step one, you weren't born sick, you're just exposed, bad hardware. Step two, maybe like me, you're missing a certain detox pathway. And so some toxic insult can get in either by what you eat, by what you breathe, by what you make even. We make toxins, right? So now all of a sudden there's bad hardware and there's a toxin. That toxin comes along and causes inflammation to this bad hardware. Your body's response is to actually send cholesterol there as a hormone to reduce the it's like a Vaseline smoothing things out. And when that cholesterol meets the toxin that caused the inflammation in the first place, it starts to spin your head a little bit. It actually oxidizes the cholesterol and then it hardens and deposits and starts to build up. And then one day, a doctor who's practicing chemical medicine says, this number is too high. Let's bring it down. Without ever asking why. The why is simple. You have inflammation in your arteries and your body's trying to help you by sending cholesterol there, but you're so toxic that it doesn't move and it builds up. If we just dealt with two things, let's make this better quality. There's supplements you can take, there's foods you can eat that will make the endothelium more robust. And let's remove the thing that's causing the inflammation. This is why we've taken hundreds of people off of cholesterol pills and why I'm worried about being assassinated. Right?
Fair. It's funny because you're bringing me back. My first experience in the healthcare, I was interning with a vascular surgeon. All day was patients on Lipitor, and then we're in surgery because they've got arterial stenosis, and he's putting a stent in. What I always describe as a metal Chinese finger trap is what it looks like to me. And it's even that being our go-to solution, putting that in someone's body is like, it's a temporary fix, because I'd seen them remove stents and put new stents in where it's like, what are we actually treating here? Like, these are all just quick fixes. And also, I mean, it's not like it's a simple thing, you know, it seems like we could, I mean, you nailed it so hard. And Ryan and I have talked about this. It made me smile when you said it. Modern medicine is the new thing. Because we always talk about, you know, we're big on holistic and natural plant-based, right? Where it's like, even the word alternative is crazy. That's the real medicine, right? Like that's thousands of years, like you said, we've been using, our thing is obviously botanicals, plants, herbs, whatever. But we've gotten so off track from our history, it seems like.
All of what we think we're learning, we already knew. It was taken away from us.
Yes.
Right. Look what's happening. We were chatting offline. What's happening in Canada today?
Yeah.
There was a petition that went around 2 years ago saying that doctors should not be allowed to recommend, medical doctors should not be allowed to recommend vitamins because they're not evidence-based. Right? We're talking about vitamin C and D even. So if you go to PubMed, where all the publications are, this is where researchers post everything. Let's look at Lipitor, the drug we were talking about. There's 11,000 publications on Lipitor. Vitamin D has 99,000. It has 10 times the most prescribed drug, and they're saying it's not evidence-based, it's not safe.
Right.
In Canada, since they started measuring, so there's this complaint box that you can send for natural health products. It's a governing body, and it started in 1965. So since 1965, they've had 0 deaths reported, right? This is the safety body we're going to, there's some complaints, I vomited, I got diarrhea, whatever. 0 deaths. Tylenol has 38 deaths per year in Canada. The most basic pharmaceutical product, right? And what's happening? They just passed a bill to get rid of natural health products within 2 years in Canada. So we know there's a very clear push towards this belief that Western medicine, that reactive symptom masking is all we've ever had, that this alternative, quote unquote, stuff is truly alternative. It isn't. Like, ask grandma what she used to do. When you go to the blue zones where people live over 100, where there are centenarians, ask them what they do. They don't have Lipitor deficiencies. And that's not what they're trying to say. They're eating food, they're exercising, they have good relationships, they walk, they're doing all the things their body needs, which is why they live over 100 in good health, playing with their grandchildren.
Crazy.
Yeah, it's wild.
What's your thoughts on, gene editing? You hear about this stuff and you're like, it's science fiction, oh yeah, but it seems to be pretty real.
So it's real in terms of the technological ability. We know how to do it. It's not so real in terms of our ability to implement it.
Okay.
So the only human project that's been done today that the FDA allowed was for the eye. So it was a very localized, but it worked, by the way. There was a particular eye condition they were dealing with, and they spliced out a portion of the gene, replaced it with a healthy version, and then this eye condition resolved itself. So I think it was Goldman Sachs that said that the genetic therapeutic industry is going to be over $4 trillion by 2030 or something. And it's non-existent today. Right? The entire American healthcare industry is $4 trillion. So it's going to outpace the entire healthcare market. Because if you can edit a gene, the example we just talked about with the bad quality artery hardware, the endothelium, if I can just edit that out and give you the most beneficial version of that gene, then you're able to then go eat the toxic American food and smoke the American cigarettes and breathe the air, whatever, which is what they want. Like, let's not stop selling you things, but let's allow you to keep being able to be resilient to them. So that is coming.
It's
fascinating. Awesome. At the end of the day, you do all these things we talked about at the beginning because we're all want to live as healthy as we can for as long as we can. Yeah. And it's what you just described is interesting. It's like, do we want to learn how to eat better, have less pollutants, or do we just want to get the barriers out of the way to do whatever the hell we want? It's an interesting discussion. Yeah.
So the average person wants the latter. The average person, tell me what pill to take.
Yeah.
Right.
But there's more people than ever that are saying that doesn't work. Right. Yeah. Post-COVID, people saw how fragile they actually are. Yeah. It's like, what can I do to be my best? And when you start to do a little bit and you feel different, you're like, oh, wow, I can actually be my own quarterback and manage this stuff. And then you do more, and then you do more. Then you become a biohacker. Then you climb Mount Kilimanjaro and you become a superhuman version of yourself, right? So we know our potential is so much greater than where we're at. And it's really not, it's food, environment, lifestyle, which means exercise and sleep. When we're not talking about spending your life savings, like if you were to have a medical condition that 66% of American bankruptcies, by the way, are based on healthcare costs. Right?
Wow.
You work your whole life to give it all away to a disease. So and that's all we're talking about. We're talking about your existing habits. You already eat. Just eat well. You already move the way your body. You already have relationships. Have the right relationships. So these are all the things that lead to longevity and the prevention of disease. All we're saying is if you have your DNA in hand, you know exactly what to focus and prioritize on. Eat well. What does that mean? Should I be a vegan? Should I be carnivore? How do I metabolize starches? Your DNA already tells you all that. The enzymes that you need to break down beans, lentils, legumes is genetically predetermined. The ability to use fat as fuel on a keto diet or a carnivore, genetically predetermined. Your insulin response, your DNA will already tell you what to do, so you avoid all the trial and error, one size fits all, and make the right choice on day one.
Talking with Kashif Khan, CEO of the DNA Company. Go to the DNAcompany.com for everything that we're talking about today. So, Kashif, we spit. Talk about the level of detail in the report that you guys provide back. You just you've touched on it, but let's be specific on what kind of action items and what are we informed with, like top to bottom from that test?
So there's two answers. Firstly, there's more that we know than what's in the report, and there's certain regulatory issues where there's clinical things we can't say.
Right.
And so we do have clinicians that can guide people if they need more, right? But the baseline is this. By studying those 7,000 people we talked about earlier, we kind of identified here's the core systems that over and over and over again, if people were to have optimal, they become the best version of themselves. And these symptomatic, like if you have the central hub, a job that your body does, it's that thing that all these spokes come out of these diseases that we name, right? Migraines, autoimmunity, etc. It's usually all interconnected to these central hubs of system failure. So what do we focus on? Hormones. Understanding the cascade of I take progesterone and convert it into testosterone and convert that into estrogen. How do you actually do that? Good, clean androgens or toxic DHT, which makes your hair fall out, gives you prostate issues. So we map out hormones to a T, so you know what to do about that. We then look at mood and behavior. That's actually the biggest section. So words that are used like anxiety, depression, burnout, procrastination. I can't tell you how many hundreds of people we've taken that say, I have anxiety, that learned that anxiety was actually their superpower, and they're just in the wrong context.
Yeah.
They have a unique ability perhaps to have a serotonin dysregulation, which means that they see the world at a higher level of detail, which means everything bothers them and irritates them, which drives anxiety, or could drive leadership because they see things that other people don't see. And so they read the book and they get it. They read the contract and they get it, right? So the context is key there, and we teach people how their brain works so that they always end up in the right context and thrive. Then we look at what we were talking about around chronic disease, like the main ones, diabetes, cardiovascular, some cancers, not the disease itself, because we don't believe that there's so much more your DNA can form. It's more, here's this, again, the systems that are failing that if you don't focus on may lead to this. So we now know what to do. It's the system as opposed to the disease. Diet and nutrition, macros and micros, fat, carbs, starches, proteins, etc. Vitamin D, C, vitamin A, zinc, all the big ones. And what is the actual dose you need? How often? Some people, when it comes to vitamin D, for example, really complex pathway. There's a gene that takes the D2 from the sun, turns it to D3, then it transports it to the cell, then it binds it to the cell. 3-step process. And just taking vitamin D isn't enough of an answer. How much and how often? Some people need to take it 3 times a day because they don't transport and bind it, right? So we can get very specific there. Then we look at sleep. And this was an unintentional one. Nobody really believed that there was the genetics of sleep to even work on. But what we noticed over and over and over again in those 7,000 research patients, that everyone's sleep got fixed unintentionally. Wow. Yeah, because when you focus on a core foundational red flag in the genome, the thing that's preventing someone from sleeping goes away. And it's not as simple as I don't sleep at night. It could be circadian rhythm. Your internal clock doesn't work. It could be a neurochemical issue that you're hypersensitive and you just can't get into deep sleep. It could be a detox issue and your body doesn't have enough time to detoxify the North American load of chemicals because you're missing key detox genes, and so you need more sleep. You just don't feel rested. So we can be very specific on what's breaking up the sleep. Just last two things is innate cellular health. What's going on at the cell level? How do you deal with toxins? How do you deal with inflammation? How do you deal with oxidation? There's certain people we tell them, you should not run on a treadmill. You are not designed for cardiovascular exercise. If you do it, you're going to age faster. The thing that you think is causing or going to allow you to prevent cardiovascular disease may actually cause it, right? And there's some people we tell them, no, go ahead, be a marathon runner. You're wired for it. You can see from the DNA what your habits are wired for. The last thing is we take all of these 6 that I talked about and we reinterpret them for the context of longevity. How do you add 10, 15 quality years, right? You have a trajectory of, living to 80, right? How do you get that to 100? And at 100, you're riding a bicycle, not in a hospital bed. So we take all of this stuff and reinterpret it for that purpose. And there's some additional genes we look at that are around clearing mutated cells, making new cells. So you understand how your body does that stuff. So all in all, if you implement all of what we tell you here, you should live to 100. Our bodies are designed to live to 120 from what we understand. And if you do everything right, that shouldn't be that big of a deal, really. It's your habits that stop you from getting there. It's not so much that you aren't getting, you're born to do that. You then make choices that take years away. Right?
Fascinating.
I love it. I've got a few things. I love everything you said. Totally love it. So, and I was going to ask you, well, not even ask this, but I love what you said about, anxiety, depression. We throw these words around, and I think it's easy to categorize yourself, but I think we've gotten too comfortable there's actually, I heard a podcast or someone basically saying that, do you have anxiety or are you easily excited? Is that anxiety or is it excitement? We always go to the negative, but like you said, where it's like, one of my business partners has what modern medicine would call ADHD. That's his genius. Like he's quick, fast, brilliant. Like that's what gives him his edge. It's like, we need to stop categorizing with these negative associations. But the other thing you touched on, I was going to ask you, when you were talking about vitamin D, was that related to like L-methylfolate? Like, have you heard of that? Where I've heard this, where people are, so just for the audience, my background's medical lab is my main business. And we did pharmacogenetic, which essentially we can tell the doctor which pharmaceutical medication metabolizes best through your body. Like I know for me, when I did the test, benzodiazepines, I'm a slow metabolizer, which I don't take benzodiazepines, but that was the one kind of, off normal for me. But I love that you're taking it a step further where it's like, you don't even need pharmaceuticals. And I do think we really saw benefit more with our psychiatry and psychology offices with antidepressants, where, if it takes 60 days for those to typically start working. And our whole pitch was, you can help get your patient on the path to well faster instead of trial and error. But I love where you're going even a step further of, and obviously there's use for pharmaceuticals in cases, but you're taking it a step further where like, no, let's look at this from a bigger standpoint, and how can we even move away from the pharmaceuticals as a whole?
Yeah, we often have to work with doctors because that's where the patient's already living somewhere. And we believe, okay, acute response, there's an emergency, go ahead and talk to the doctor and take a pill. But let's also at the same time figure out why. So as opposed to taking that pill for the next 10 years, it should only be an emergency response. You talk about antidepressants, the best antidepressant result that we have is 40% success.
Right.
40% of the time. Exercise works 80% of the time. It works twice as well, and it's free.
Yeah,
Tell me
can't make money on that, right?
say I go on the DNAcompany.com, I order one of your kits, I get my results back, and I bring that to my primary care doctor. Do you guys have a clinical team that my doc, because I imagine, I saw this, there was pushback from physicians with it's like you have this phenomenal data, literally based on your personalized DNA. And it's like they kind of were like, interesting, but it's like they kind of thought it was some fairyland, novelty thing. What do you guys do to, I guess, deal with that situation? How are you?
That's a huge problem. It's a huge problem. And this is why people get stuck, because the doctor is trained. This is part of their indoctrination, right? Which is
Right.
You are the gatekeeper. You're not a doctor. You're a gatekeeper. Nobody else is allowed to deal with this person, and nothing else is true other than what you're saying. And if you haven't been taught it, it's not true.
Yeah.
That's what they believe, and they're taught to believe that. And so they truly do. That's the experience. There's some amazing doctors out there that are sick of what they're seeing in terms of outcomes. And so they've learned on their own, and they take functional medicine or integrative training, and they start to learn, and they have different outcomes. But for the most part, that's not what they're trained to do. And so we do see that resistance. And so we did, like, our intention is to deliver the outcome. We're not a data collection company. We're not a data mining company. We are an insight and healing company. We want people to get better. That's how we get word of mouth, right? So we did actually end up merging with a telemedicine company that had a national footprint of clinicians, and we made them all take our functional genomics course so that they understood how we think. And we literally last month launched a clinical practice, I think in a few states. We're ready to go nationally, but we're just testing things out. But we also are working with hundreds of functional medicine doctors and training them, and we're now starting to see, 3-4 years ago when I used to go to a conference and speak somewhere, it'd be a lot of biohackers and functional medicine doctors. And there'd be maybe one medical doctor that just wanted to explore, and they get upset and they'd leave, right? Now, in this year, it's like half and half. So like 50% of the audience is allopathic pharmaceutical doctors that are just completely disgusted with what's happening in their practice and are wanting to know. And now they're coming with an open mind saying, please help me, please teach me.
Yeah.
Right? We didn't get that at all. I just had a conversation with I think it's the nation's largest transplant network, organ transplant hospital. And they're asking us to build them a prep and recovery program. How do we use someone's DNA to make sure that they're ready for that surgery and they recover way faster? 2 years ago, they wouldn't even talk to me.
Right.
So we're seeing this tipping point now where there's enough pressure, enough clients leaving allopathic medicine to functional medicine. There's something like 35,000 functional medicine doctors now. So it's a big of enough wave where they have to do something. But yes, we've also brought in our own clinicians just to make sure people have like a full end support.
I totally agree. I think post-COVID era, like you said, people are a lot more conscious of what can I do every day? What can I supplement every day? Kind of, it opened a lot of people's eyes 100%.
Do you guys pass the report, Kashif? I mean, how involved are you guys in some of the, I don't know, if there's nutrients missing, if there's things like that, is it, you guys involved in that?
So I built this in the way that I wished it looked when I got sick. Because even the first genetic test that I got didn't actually help me, by the way. I had to find a couple different PhDs that had interpreted, and they both told me two different things. And there was no recommendation. There was more like, here's your problem, now go, that's how you have to live, right? So I built it the way I wished it was, which was, it's easy to understand. I don't need to know the genes. I need to know what's wrong and how do I fix it. That's it. I don't need the science. But the science is also there, separated in case someone wants to geek out or understand why we're saying what we're saying. So it doesn't say the DRD2 gene. It says you are more prone to addiction because you don't bind dopamine properly. So it's hard for you to experience pleasure. And so you seek pleasure. But guess what? If you switch to reward, you become entrepreneurial because dopamine also powers reward. So not only are you now have a choice between being an addict, between being depressed, or being high achievement. Just like you were saying, Chris, earlier, the same thing that we demonize is actually your superpower. We're just in the wrong place. We're in the wrong context. We don't have the tools. We're not using that superpower we've been given. So we call those things out in the report. And the other thing we've done, again, to make it the way I wish it was, is we've added these live report review sessions where people can show up with their report in their hand with all their data and just ask questions. It's like live, ongoing, 1, 2, 3 hours sometimes. So we dive deep into the brain, we dive deep into the heart, we dive just like we're doing right now. And people can say, I'm dealing with Hashimoto's, right? And I've been struggling for 10 years. Can you show me what in my DNA is going wrong? And we'll do it live on that call, right? And we have hundreds of people showing up for these things. It's made a massive difference because they can take action. And that's, again, what I needed. I didn't need the data. I needed an action plan. Tell me what to do, right? That's what's missing from most of these tests and reports. So that's how it was built out.
I love it.
That's what it's all about.
It is. Where's this all going? Like, how do these worlds of, what can be done to bring these worlds closer together between the doctors and what's things that you're doing? Like, what?
Yeah, that's a big reason why I wrote the book. I never claimed to be an author, and it wasn't part of it's not like the business requires a book. It was more like the industry requires the book.
Yeah.
It had to be something that, again, was easy to understand, a book that is not deep science. It's like you read 2 pages, like, it's too heavy, I don't want this. It was more, like the book is entertaining, it's engaging. And the whole purpose is to tell my story of how I healed myself so that every doctor, naturopath, pediatrician, whoever sees that, oh, this makes sense.
Yeah.
And this is an actual human case study of somebody that went from, by the way, just to tell you the actual data, I was 38 years old when we started this journey, and my biological age was 43. I tested that at the time. So I was 5 years older than myself. That's how sick I was. I now actually am 43, and my biological age is 33.
Ooh, wow.
So it's like a delta value of 15 years, right?
Wow.
From changing my habits to no medication, no pills. In fact, removal of medication that I used to take.
Right.
And I'm now healthier than I've ever been. So telling the story in a book, I thought was the best way to do it. And lo and behold, one of our clients was a CEO of a publishing company and said, you need to write a book. I said, yeah, I know. So let's do it.
Nice. You're right. My experience was always the doctors were intimidated by the data. Because they're obviously not everyone's trained in genetics. You had to make the reporting so simple and easy, but because it was such a new thing, there was still a lot of, like you said, it didn't fit in the indoctrination, right? And you're dealing with some egos as well from time to time. So it's really sounds like you guys have made a very clinically accurate and actionable report that people can implement quite easily.
And we also educate the consumer so they know what to tell their doctor. When you show up to one of our report review sessions, you know so much that it becomes very hard for your doctor to tell you this is nonsense, right? And we have this all the time where the doctors are then calling us after saying, can you please help me understand this better? Because they just can't deny what that person's saying. They've been so well educated by us.
Right. That's amazing, man. I love it.
Kashif, we love to add value to our audience. So I'm going to put you on the spot just a hair.
Sure.
So obviously, we need everybody that's listening to go to theDNAcompany.com and buy their own report and get their specifics. But maybe you've done this long enough, so we won't make this super difficult. But maybe throw out like your best bag of 2, 3, or 4 common issues and the solutions. And we may have talked about them some already, but like whether it's sleep, depression, or something, maybe just some common things. And obviously everybody needs to go to theDNAcompany.com and get their report to know exactly what they have and what they need to do. But maybe some common ailments or common things and what the simple solution or things that your report might point out they should do different.
So the area that needs the biggest support is everything around female hormone health. So all women, talk to any woman about her experience at the doctor and it sucks.
Yeah.
Right? It's like, you're supposed to feel like that. You have hormones. Well, men have hormones. Why don't we feel like that? And we actually have the same hormones, testosterone, estrogen is the same thing. The difference is women have a lot more estrogen typically, and their environment is loaded with estrogen mimics. The chemicals, the pesticides, the foods, the cosmetics even are causing crazy changes to their hormone levels, which is leading to things like breast cancer, Alzheimer's, dementia, etc. So that area is completely broken medically, and it's so easy to fix with the genetic map. We know exactly what you're doing with your hormones and exactly what to supplement with, what habits to add, what to remove, why you may feel a migraine on certain days or not. And the answer is very simple to that. Women were excluded from all clinical trials because they have a menstrual cycle. So the trials didn't work. If you're trying to make a one size fits all and it doesn't work on week 3 versus week 2, it's not going to get approved. So women were removed and replaced with menopausal women who don't have a cycle, which eliminates anyone that's premenopausal, right? That's why women's healthcare sucks so bad. So that's a big one. The other area I would say is everything around mood and behavior and mental health. That problem is so much bigger today than it's ever been before. And the source is not understood. It is our food. It is the EMF, these phones that we're on, right? And not understanding. So if I were to give you one answer to that question, it's not understanding that we are not designed for today's reality. Our DNA is actually somewhere between 200,000 to 250,000 years old, about 250,000 years old. So now picture 250,000 years old. The pyramids we're told are like 4,000 years old. Some people say 12,000. We don't know, somewhere in there, right? So modern agriculture started 10,000 years ago. Industrialized reality that we live in is 200-300 years old, not even, maybe a couple hundred years old. So the reality of today, where there's been 144,000 chemicals introduced since the 1970s, food got completely corrupted in the 1970s. The studies around cell phone safety were done in the 1980s before it was a supercomputer that's signaling to the cell phone tower 900 times a minute, right? That's what you're being exposed to, the Wi-Fi, everything. So the data around, replying to a symptom versus all of the toxic soup that we're in constantly that's causing it all, and then knowing which part of your genome is broken that isn't protecting you and defending you, right? This is why we're seeing autism 2 generations ago, 1 in 10,000 kids. Last generation, 1 in 500. This generation, according to the CDC, so it's probably worse than we think it is, 1 in 38. We haven't changed genetically. The kids haven't changed.
Right.
There's no autism virus flying around. This has changed. The food, the cell phones, the chemicals, all of that load. So if I were to put it all into one nutshell, it's that, not understanding that the genes that you were given were designed for habits of 200,000 years. Somebody sleeping in a cave under a fir, eating berries from a bush, versus what you do today. So you need to work on it, which means supplementation, diet, exercise. Food is garbage today. It has no nutrition in it, so it's not going to help you. You need to do a lot more. Your genes will prescribe for you exactly what to prioritize, what to focus on, so that this toxic soup you're in doesn't make you sick.
With that being said, if there was, a couple supplements or routines that you would suggest, or that you most commonly maybe see people are deficient in the reporting, what are some easy things people could do today that would make a difference?
I would say, so there's 3 big ones, 1 for women and then 2 overall. The 2 overall are, you need to support your glutathione and detox pathways because there's too many toxins. So think of it this way. Our bodies do have detoxification systems. There's a bucket that you're able to fill to a certain degree that your body will keep emptying out. But we're overfilled. We're overflowing. There's too much input. So our body can't keep up. The detox systems we have aren't good enough. So you need to support glutathionization. But what do you take can be a little bit more personalized. Can you actually take straight glutathione? Genetically, some people can't. Do you need NAC, glycine? There's a lot of things you can play with, and you can personalize that. So that's a big one. Support this detox pathway because of all of what we talked about. Second is support the mitochondria. Because of this, again, load of stress, no sleep, too many toxins, etc., the cells are also suffering. And this is aging. What is aging is the unraveling of the cell, the damage to the DNA. You start to see saggy skin and white hair because the DNA is now damaged. So our mitochondria are meant to be resilient. We lose them by the age of 30 because our ancestors usually didn't live past that age. We actually, as humans, hardware-wise, are designed to last up to 120 years. but habit-wise didn't do that. So we're now living for longer than ever without any education on how to stay healthy in those extra years we have. Right? Our systems start failing around 30, 40. By the time you're 50, by the time you're 70, you've lost 70% of your mitochondria. Gone. Right? Unless you're supplementing or doing things to maintain it. So that's a second area that if for people to focus on, a lot of aging and disease-related stuff just can't happen. The third, for women particularly, is to slow down estrogenization. So what we call an aromatase inhibitor. Most women are over-estrogized. There's too many estrogen mimics, which then leads to estrogen toxicity, fat storage, mood issues, etc., anxiety. If you slow down that estrogen pathway, there's a gene called CYP19A1 that turns your testosterone into estrogen. It's going to change a lot. Again, it's one of those things where it's this hub that points to all these spokes, right? So that's a big one for women. Slow down. And there's a ton of supplements that do that. They're easy to find. And those, I would say, are the three big ones that stand out that kind of everyone has to do.
I love it. Value here on Vaycay. Yes. Kashif, you've been great, my friend. Very insightful. And where can everybody keep up with you? We've mentioned the DNAcompany.com, but where can people follow you? Maybe things you've got going on, new insights, etc.
Yeah, so the DNAcompany.com is the website for the testing. The book is at the DNAway.com. It's available everywhere, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, wherever you go. But if you just want to read more about the book before you read the book, it's at the DNAway.com. I'm constantly venting on Instagram because every time we deal with a patient, I just see something stupid happening in healthcare that needs to be shared. So it's not my full name, but Kash, K-A-S-H, Khan official. So K-A-S-H-K-H-A-N official. There's usually a daily reel there about something we've learned about a new chemical or a new food that you shouldn't eat, a new threat to your hormones. I'm learning every day, so we're constantly sharing it.
Awesome.
Thank you so much for coming on. We really appreciate your time. Tons of value and insights here.
No, pleasure and honor, man. You guys are doing something great here, so happy to be here with you.
Great. You know where to find us, folks. We're always sponsored by takeavacay.com, the most premium plant-based and getting down to the root cause and not just lab-based. Just like our friend here, the DNA Way with Kashif Khan. You know where to find us. All the places podcasts are downloaded. Vaycay.global on Instagram. We'll see you next time on the Vaycay podcast.